Thank you very much. If that's okay, I will do the presentation here at the table rather than standing. I would like to, on behalf of the European Monitoring Center for Drugs and Drug Addiction, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting us at this very interesting, important, and most probably very informative conference, which will talk about many subjects that are of high interest for our European Agency on Drugs. Is it okay to put up the presentation on the screens here? On the... Yes. Sorry, we need the presentation on the screens. Sorry about that. So we'll give a quite broad overview on heroin-assisted treatment in Europe, and no, Pirona, yeah. Right. Okay. So, to start, so who are we? We are as I said, the European Monitoring Center for Drugs and Drug Addiction. We are an agency of the European Commission, which was established in 1993, and we are located in Lisbon, Portugal, and we work, and about 100 people work at this agency, of which a bit more than 20 people are actually the scientific staff who do the scientific work in regards to data collection and analysis and reporting on the drug situation in Europe. Importantly, for you to know, when we say in Europe, we mean the European Union, which includes 27 member states, plus the candidate countries, Turkey and Croatia, as well as Norway as a special country who is also providing data to the European Drugs Agency. So just before talking about heroin-assisted treatment, I think it's important just to briefly talk about the overall situation in regards to drug treatment in Europe, where now, for the first time, we have a conservative estimate, that at least 1 million people in Europe receive annually some sort of drug treatment for all kinds of drug problems, of which about 670,000 problem opioid users are receiving opioid substitution treatment. And most of it is methadone, obviously, for historical reasons. Importantly, these 670,000 represent about half of all problem opioid users, estimated problem opioid users in Europe. So we have more or less than 50% coverage of the problem opioid using population in Europe receiving substitution treatment. Also, to put into perspective heroin-assisted treatment, the development of heroin-assisted treatment in Europe, I think it's also important to look at the historical development of opioid substitution treatment in general in Europe. What we see, we have three different periods. We have countries between 67 and 86, which a few countries had adopted opioid substitution treatment, basically methadone, as a treatment option, of which we have England, who had earlier than 67, of course, but we have also Italy and the Netherlands, for example. And then we have a second period where most countries adopted substitution treatment, methadone and buprenorphine, and this was really a reaction to the epidemic, the heroin epidemics associated with incredible numbers of drug-related deaths and infectious diseases among injecting drug users. So that was really a reaction where most countries in Europe had adopted substitution treatment to respond to these problems. And then finally, after 96, we have the remaining countries who adopted substitution treatment, with Turkey now being the last country which hasn't yet adopted substitution treatment as a treatment option. Then what we see, and this is also important, is the scaling up of substitution treatment in Europe. What we see is between 1993, where we had about an estimated 70,000 problem opioid users receiving substitution treatment, to now, in the latest data available in 2008, having about 670,000 clients in substitution treatment in Europe. This is a tenfold increase over a period of 15 years. So this has been really a significant scaling up in regards to this treatment option. However, what we also see is that the majority comes from what we call the old member states, the countries that were member states before 2004, that joined before 2004. So these are mostly the Western and Southern European countries, with about only 2% of substitution treatment being provided in the new member states, though the countries that joined the European Union since 2004. So there is really this geographical divide, Western, Southern, and Eastern Europe. And this is important in understanding also the pace of adopting alternative treatment options like heroin-assisted treatment across Europe. That the speed or the adoption of pharmacological treatment option is not equal across Europe. Here we see, for example, the percentage of opiate maintenance treatment clients, so clients in substitution treatment, as a percentage of the estimated number of problem opiate users in the different countries. What we see, for example, is on the right of your screen, we see that Germany, Luxembourg, Italy, and France and Ireland, about 50% of their problem opiate users are in some sort of substitution treatment. So it's a sort of good coverage of their problem opiate using population. But what you can see on the left side of the graph is that in countries, mostly in Eastern countries, member states, we see coverage levels less than 10% of their problem opiate using population receiving substitution treatment. This shows also that in these countries, the heroin epidemic, so the heroin problem, came later than in Germany, for example, or France and Italy, but still, and the problems, they didn't have to face necessarily the same consequences as in the West in terms of drug-related deaths or infectious diseases. So it's really also a matter of adopting and accepting a treatment like methadone treatment and buprenorphine. So we have to keep this in mind when we are talking about heroin-assisted treatment also in Europe. So moving on to heroin-assisted treatment, which is the topic of this presentation in Europe, what many actually don't know is that it is not a new approach. It's not because in Switzerland in the 90s they adopted heroin-assisted treatment that it was something new. It was over a century that heroin was actually prescribed. In the UK, since 1920, general practitioners were prescribing heroin as for pain management, or diamorphine, the medical term for heroin, diacetylmorphine, for pain relief, but also for the dependence of heroin, for the treatment of heroin dependence, until 1960, where the law changed in the UK, where the general practitioners, I'm not talking now about treatment centers, the general practitioners, the law changed for them, where general practitioners had to be licensed to prescribe diamorphine or heroin for the treatment of heroin dependence. So only specialists, general practitioners or family doctors were allowed to prescribe diamorphine to heroin users. And there were two studies that were recently conducted that showed that from all opiate prescriptions in the UK in 1995, so including pain management, in 1995, about 1.6% of the prescriptions were for the treatment of heroin dependence. But this has been decreasing. In 2007, about 0.3% of the opiate prescriptions were for the treatment of heroin dependence. So overall, heroin-assisted treatment is not something revolutionary from the 90s. However, what the characteristics of the previous heroin treatment of this UK model, let's say, is that it was not supervised. It was prescribed and not under supervision were heroin users, problem opiate users taking it. So in the 90s, there was a renewed interest in this type of treatment with the work of Uchtenhagen in Switzerland in 1994, where they conducted a number 5 studies in looking into a new approach of heroin-assisted treatment, and which I will present now, which were a new clinical approach in regard to heroin-assisted treatment. First of all, that the injectable doses that were provided had to be taken under strict supervision by a doctor or by trained nurses in a clinic. So it was not takeaway, it was not, it was really a very structured, intensive treatment provision where heroin-assisted treatment or diamorphine had to be taken under supervision. Also, it was not a first-line treatment. It was given to a subgroup of problem opiate users who failed or who were who were not respondent to other treatment options like methadone, buprenorphine, or drug-free treatment, who had continuous dropouts from this type of treatment, but also to reach out to people who are not in treatment. As you know, in Switzerland, I had a huge open scene, and Uchtenhagen wanted to attract these people with this new clinical approach of supervised injectable heroin treatment. However, what